call this meeting to order. There are 7 people present, well, sort of. And so let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I would like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand. Did Harold raise his right hand?
He did.
Okay, all opposed, same sign, 7.
We didn't have a discussion, but can we pull out the...
We are on the consent
Okay,
agenda
okay,
next.
okay.
So the next thing we need to do is to approve the consent agenda.
And I'd like to pull out the purchase of the 2016 Expedition as a separate talking point from the rest of the consent agenda.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda from 3.01 down to 3.04.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. 7. You'll have to tell me if he raises his hand.
I'll be
Okay,
Harold.
7. Okay, you'll be
allowed?
Harold. All right. Just tell me. Just tell me.
You have to be elected and you have to live
Okay.
here.
All right.
By the way, that part of that consent agenda was the $10,000 donation from Olathe
That's
Medical
true.
Center, which I think is
It is.
is a generous, very generous of them.
It is.
Yes,
It
much
is.
appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Tim, would you like to?
Yeah, I was just on purchasing another vehicle. When I was on Sunday, I was in the middle school going to Life Church, and I noticed we had 3 SUVs and 3 vans. And on the way in tonight, I just checked. There's 4 vans and there was 2 SUVs present, so there's at least 7 vehicles. And I really 6. I understand one of those is not working well, so that's the one they want to replace. But 6 vehicles seems more than ample to do. Is tight as the budget is coming from the state. With 6 vehicles, if they need something bigger, take a bus. Instead of purchasing a $33,000 vehicle, you could hire the hourly wage of 3 bus drivers for the cost of a new vehicle.
The Suburban is used differently than the vans. It's used every week during football season. It's used during the fall and the winter for our debate kids. It's used in the spring for track. It's used for cross country in the fall. It's used more than probably at least equal to most of the other vehicles. The other ones don't have the size and the capacity that we need.
What about one of the panel buses? They've got some of the minivans there would hold as many people as an SUV.
Well, and we have equipment to take and all of those kinds of things too.
And I'm glad Tim brought this out because I had a question. Was there a trade-in on this or?
No, we're not trading in the Suburban. It has 267,000 miles, I believe. So, and you could see from the, if you want to bring up, you can see from the price. We're paying $32,717. If you'll scroll on, the actual price. Yeah, I think so. Well, you have to let me see first.
There you go.
45,000. So we have a state bid price. That's what we pay. And typically, what happens is Dale White gets looks at the state bid price, and then visits with our local dealers to see if they can meet or beat that price. So Advantage Ford can meet the state bid price. So it's a very good deal. And maybe Terry can explain it better than I can, but part of replacing the vehicles is good budget-wise because we claim, and it escapes me at the moment.
If only if this vehicle is used for special education.
Oh, okay. So, and this is not used for special education. This is for athletics and for academics, for debate and so on. So, and our vehicles are used continually. I mean, just because you see them parked together doesn't mean that they're not being used. So
what are we going to do with it, with the old one?
probably we'll use that for short trips and in town and those kinds of things. But we do need something that's big and of this size to go to Wichita and to go to football games and so on.
This is a typical month, and each color represents a different vehicle.
Mhm.
And you'll see just a plethora of colors. And I can get you a copy of this if you want to look through all the different vans and vehicles that are used and how many on a certain day. They're all over the place.
They are.
What does it look like from there? You've got more than 2 or 3, and we've got 7, so.
Right. There's 2 or 3 vans that are there every day that are always gone. But then you'll have jumping around different vehicles that are used significantly more. And the cars are smaller. They're not going to handle all of our students that need to travel through in them to different games. And then SUV, which one getting replaced? The Suburban?
Uh-huh.
So, and there's not a lot traveled too far out. We don't plan too far out. So if you go back a month, it
Or if
gets
you went back to
pretty
the
cloudy.
fall. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
October gets pretty busy.
So in my view, it's needed. We have sent the Suburban, for example, to Wichita earlier this year, and it broke down. It had our kids from debate, I believe it was, and so it's just not trustworthy, and we need something that size to send out of town with our kids and with our equipment. So
is there any further discussion on this item? If not, then I need a motion to approve 3.05 on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand, please. All opposed?
Did you see Harold's vote?
7-0. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, and Shelley. Not here yet.
okay, I just want to say that Mrs. Shelley Todd is a fantastic music teacher. She was nominated and elected as the elementary choir teacher of the year. She does an outstanding job at Lincoln. So she forgot last time, I believe it was December 14th.
Yeah.
So I emailed her on Friday and probably should have reminded her today. She's a very busy lady. So anyway, we just want to celebrate and recognize Mrs. Todd. We have fantastic music teachers at all our schools, but it's nice when the Kansas Music Educators Association also recognizes our teachers. So when you see Shelley, just tell her congratulations. Don't
Share
tell
that with her tomorrow. Okay.
Well done, Shelley.
Yes, well done. All right, we do have one person who would like to speak before the board, Mr. Dar. Before you do, I have something I have to read, it's required, that the parents and taxpayers of USD 290 who desire to address the board on any topic related to board work are welcome to do so at this time. Speakers are requested to limit their remarks to not more than 5 minutes, to appoint a spokesperson if the concern is a group concern, and to supplement verbal presentations with written reports if necessary or desired. Public comments critical of an individual are not acceptable. Please note the board will listen to the public comment but will not respond. The board may direct the superintendent to follow up at a later date on questions asked or concerns raised.
All right, I've had several concerns. I've been in here. I've spoke with some of the board before already once. My daughter goes to OMS. We've had several issues this year.
Yeah, now remember, you can't talk about people at all on this. We can't use names or reference anyone that could be identified.
Okay. So saying like, is my daughter, is that?
That's identifiable.
Okay. All right. We have some issues with sexual harassment. Can I say teachers or is that recognizable?
That's fine.
Okay. That have had some, I guess, over discipline, putting their hands on students. And I've been to the board about it. I actually had a meeting this morning with the superintendent and the assistant and the principal. And so far, there has nothing been done. I got a letter from the office here over the sexual harassment deal. The first go around it was found substantiated. Second go around, it was found unsubstantiated, which I don't know why. The investigation was that he had talked to the people that were named off. Some of them said no, they didn't hear nothing, it didn't happen. And then there was another one that said that they had heard it. I don't know why it was unsubstantiated. I have, I'm here because I need something done. This is, I guess, my only option here is coming to the board. I've put an email to, I think his name was Jim Porter, I think, from Kansas. Yeah, and still nothing back. I don't feel safe. I don't feel that my student is safe, and I'm hoping you guys can address it and maybe get something done with it. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dar.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, reports and presentations. Mr. Cochran.
Good evening. I'm Sean Cochran from DLR Group, filling in for Rod Oath out tonight to talk about the HVAC systems at the Ottawa High School. A few months back, Rod talked to you about a couple of options for the systems there, and we're going to revisit those tonight, give a little more information, and maybe make a recommendation. So the rules of the road, or the goals, if you will, for these HVAC systems is to provide cooling temperature control in every space, heating or cooling by every zone, no matter what time of year it is. The HVAC system will provide temperature control, humidity control, and fresh air to the spaces. The current system you have over there was updated in 2006. It's a two-pipe system that serves the classroom areas. The main gym has rooftop package units that have integral cooling in them, DX cooling, and an older control system there. The first option under consideration is a four-pipe system. With this option, we'd keep the existing central plant, which is currently two-pipe, and we'd add another set of pipes to make it a four-pipe system so that you could do simultaneous heating and cooling in the building. We'd also, as part of that, add heating coils to the existing air handlers that are on the roof, and we'd provide new air handlers to serve all the additions. The existing package units with refrigerant cooling that serve the gym would stay, and it would include a new control system for the building. This is a schematic of what that looks like. The lower left is the central plant where the heating and cooling is generated. The four pipes that send the hot and cold water out to the air handlers, and the air handlers sending the conditioned air out to the classroom, where there's also heat in some terminal units that control how much air is going to the room based on what the thermostat is asking for. summarize this system, we would keep all the existing equipment, the chillers, the boilers, the existing air handlers, all of which are about 11 years old now, but still in good condition. We would add additional pipes to make it a 4-pipe system. This system is expected to be a slightly higher energy user than our second option, but this is the least expensive option of the two options we're considering. The second option is packaged cooling units on the roof with hot water heat. In this option, we would keep the existing 2 pipes, but we would use it for heating only. The new package units on the roof would provide all the cooling. So the chilled water portion of the plant would go away. That would be the chillers and the pumps associated with them. Again, the existing equipment that serves the gym would stay, and we'd provide a new control system. This is a schematic of what that system looks like, very similar to the first option. It just doesn't have the chilled water loop. To summarize this system, it's going to keep the existing heating system intact, packaged cooling equipment on the roof. This option uses slightly less energy than the first option, but it is more expensive than the first option. This system is similar to what's proposed at the new elementary school and similar to what you've got currently at the middle school. So comparing the two systems, option A is the cheaper option to install. Option B is about 25% more first cost. But option B uses about 18% less energy than option A. Based on those figures, option B would take 24 years to pay back the first cost installation over option A. Option B's maintenance costs would increase quicker than option A's, so its total life cycle cost would take 29 years to pay back over option A. So our recommendation based on those figures is option A, to convert the building to a 4-pipe system. That would meet all our goals for individual space temperature control year-round, heating or cooling, humidity control, and fresh air. And that type of system is typical for a building of that size. It's what we would normally design. So I'll take any questions.
Is he turned on?
Go ahead, Tim.
Is looking at that on option B, with option A, you could have individual temperature control in classrooms. You would not have that with option B, would you?
You would have that with either option.
You would?
Yes. One room could be in cooling, the room right next door could be in heating,
And how
any
old-
time of year.
I'm sorry. How old are the rooftop units over the gyms? Do you know?
I believe those were installed as part of that project in 2006, so about 11 years old,
Okay.
10, 11.
What's the lifespan expected on either of those options?
The existing equipment that you have there, the chillers and the air handlers, their life is usually 25 to 30 years or longer, so you've got another 10 to 15 years out of those. The lifespan of the new equipment for option B would be similar, 25 years.
What's our energy cost currently for the high school?
I don't have that information with me.
Does anybody have it? Do you know, Ron?
Anybody know?
Energy costs at the high school? Okay.
I do.
You know,
And I can't remember.
just for that.
Pretty expensive per month, but I can't
It is, yeah.
remember off the top of my head. It's interesting because I always felt like the Ottawa middle schools, especially their heating bills, were higher than most other buildings.
Really?
Mi-
Okay.
The middle schools, not the high schools.
Middle school.
Middle school.
And with this system then, would the air conditioners in the gym still come on and sound like a freight train rolling through the building?
No, with either of the options, we'd be replacing that equipment that
Oh,
hangs
good.
below the roof there.
Good.
We get new equipment that's on the roof outside the space.
Okay. It's scary sometimes at dawn ball.
Any other questions?
So what you're saying is
Carol,
middle
got
school's
questions?
costs are higher.
For relative size, at least for the heating costs.
Okay.
Wonder why.
That's unusual.
Yeah. Did you say the rooftop units stay or the rooftop units are new? I got confused in that last statement you said.
Option A keeps the rooftop air handlers you have now.
Okay.
Option B replaces those.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
And would the addition of the two additional pipes add more stress to those units and decrease the current life expectancy?
No, right now they have one coil that does either heating or cooling, depending on what the two-pipe system is, what mode it's in. We'd be adding a second coil to the units, one for heating, one for cooling. It would be the same water flows, the same usage.
Okay.
I thought we were getting 4 pipes 11 years ago.
As did I.
Yes.
So
That's just what they said.
It's
You know,
stuck in my brain.
just what they said.
Get it out.
Susan, tonight, you can change all of that. You can get a 4-pipe
Can I-
system and never have to worry about it
I
again.
just want to find that other guy that said
I
it
think
was.
you should make the motion.
Last time it was a
Yes.
pipe dream.
It was a pipe dream.
So just
God.
to make sure I understand all the numbers correctly, the existing 2 pipes have already been in place for 11 years. You'd be adding 2 more pipes, but the total life expectancy because of the use of existing equipment would really be about 14 years because they've already been in place for 11 years.
At least 14 years, yes.
Okay, and then if we went with option B, so much of it would be being replaced that it'd be like starting new with 25 more years?
It's a different piece of equipment with compressors and other parts that can fail. I may have misspoke earlier if I said 25. It's more like 15 to 20 on
Okay.
these different type of units. Compressors and things will start to experience failures, whereas the existing equipment only has fans. There's less that can go wrong with them.
Okay, and so
to
lower
go to the bathroom.
maintenance overall, even at the end of their life expectancy?
Right.
Okay.
Harold, any questions?
Okay.
Madam Chairman, I would move that we take the recommendation for option A, the 4-pipe system at the high school.
Second.
Any more discussion?
We're going to get 2 more pipes, finally. How are we going to do it logistically, though?
That's for my friend in the second row.
That's, I mean, because we have to still do school. And it's very difficult, and that was the one thing that they were scared about doing the last time. And
It's going to be a challenge.
it is, yeah, it's going to be really hard. And are we going to need to move people off-site and things like that, probably?
Just so you know, and I know Sean hasn't been in on these discussions, so I'll just butt right in. Dr. Cobbs and I have talked extensively about how the phasing is going to work and some different things that we can do once we have a really solid phasing plan in place. I know Josh Walker has done a lot with phasing and so on. So remember that we have a new elementary school that will be opening in 2017 in August. So we won't move and repurpose Eugene Field until the very end, so that if it's the case that we need to use some of or a lot of Eugene Field for high school classes, we can do that. There are empty spaces at the middle school. So we've talked extensively about being able to use some of those spaces, wood shop, fax room, those kinds of things. So I think, I know it's going to be a challenge. But as part of this whole process, we've been talking through different ways of going about it so that we're ready for anything. It's going to be uncomfortable. The electricity is going to go off. We'll have gas leaks. The internet will go down. But we'll have a fantastic place.
I just know the last time they said that they didn't think they could do it in the span of a summer, you know. So
Yeah.
and it was significant enough that it was going to disable a lot of the school.
Yeah.
That's why we only got 2 pipes.
Yeah.
That's probably it. They were too scared
Yeah.
to put 2 more pipes.
It's going to definitely be a challenge, but I think we can we can problem solve all of those so that it's the least intrusive. Our main objective is to make sure our kids get the very best education they have, and we do as little disruption of that as possible. And then secondly, disrupt teachers as much as possible. No, that's wrong. As little as possible. As little as possible. So those are our two objectives really throughout this process. So we'll do the best we can.
So the motion has been made and it has been seconded. So all in favor of realizing Susan's lifelong dream of a four-pipe system at Ottawa High School, please raise your right hand.
I voted for it last time. Didn't get what I wanted.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, it was 7-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean.
We will have Dean E-rate.
I'm up. E-rate, always exciting.
Riveting.
It's just
Yes.
wonderful. This year, it's actually really good for us. A quick overview of what is E-rate. Just a really quick what it is and what it does for us. It provides discounts for schools and libraries to purchase telecommunications and internet access a little cheaper, subsidized, and it's great and wonderful for us. All schools have it. All schools have access to it. And an organization called USAC, the Universal Service Administrative Company, takes care of that under the FCC. Category 1, there's two categories, Category 1 and Category 2. Previously, we always have used Category 1. We were not eligible entirely for Category 2 up until the E-Rate Modernization Act last year. Category 1 allows for all of this stuff up here. I'm not going to read through all of it, but just know that all the stuff on the left is being phased out, and the stuff on the right is the only thing remaining. We actually budgeted these numbers, the actual bills themselves. It's all you. You had the foresight to budget these numbers, and we do not rely on this Category 1 rebate. So this is not going to hurt us. It is going to hurt us, but we're not going to realize something. We have the money there. We're fine. The items on the left are phasing out about 20% per year, and they're focusing mainly, you'll see on the right-hand side, on internet access and construction of circuits, getting that internet access to all of our buildings, which we are in good shape already. We'll just see that hit on the local long-distance and cell phone service. Planning ahead, with Category 2, each eligible building is given a budget of $150 per student, and that's a pre-discount amount. And that's over a 5-year period. So you can use it all in the first year, you can use it over the 5 years, but you don't get it rebuilt up until 5 years have lapsed. There's a funding floor of $9,200 per building for the smaller schools, but we're well above and beyond the $9,200. Here are enrollment numbers per school. OLC, I do not believe, is on there. It's a separate building. And the way Category 2 works is they only reimburse money when the equipment is going in a building that has an instructional purpose. We're very lucky that the board office actually is a funnel through for OLC, so it actually qualifies under E-rate guidelines. This is not stuff that I wanted to look up. We have an E-rate consultant that we ask questions and they say you're good or you're not good. So we follow what they tell us to do. You'll see on the far right the pre-discount budget for all of the schools added up, $369,000 that we can use over the next 5 years if we pay a portion of that, which I'll get into. What is Category 2? We covered what Category 1 is. Category 2 is everything up there, mostly wireless access points, the controllers that handle those access points, firewalls, switches, routers, racks, all the infrastructure to get internet from our main data center, including the main data center, to every single computer, to the devices you're using today. This giant list up here, it's actually really neat. All we need, it didn't go there. My fancy transition didn't work. The only things we need on that list are the wireless access points, the wireless controllers, the firewalls, the switches and routers, and that's it. The racks themselves, they're just racks to put equipment in. They're fine. They work great. There's no fancy option that we could get that's going to help us in any way whatsoever. The UPS battery backups is a project we're looking at separately that we're going to replace as we can, one or two at a time, and use E-rate funds when we can. So Everything else that's eligible on the list, we actually do not have a need for. The caching servers, we do not use. Antenna and cabling, we do not use.
How about software?
That's the operating software for all of the items up above.
Oh, okay.
That's not really delineated on there very well, but operating software for everything above and maintenance for everything up above. All of our wiring, the maintenance is not included on the wiring itself. The maintenance will be included on like the fiber wiring, which we no longer own. The city of Ottawa owns that, and they take care of the fiber wiring. So we've pretty much limited ourselves to just the wireless access points, the wireless controllers, firewalls, switches, and battery backups. And that's what we're going to use. The discount percentage is based on the National School Lunch Program. We are 7% free and reduced, somewhere in there. That's the category we're in, and we qualify for an 80% discount rate. So the cost of goods and services, they pay 80%, we pay the remainder. Pretty good deal. 2015 spending, what we hope to spend, based on the spreadsheets that you saw attached in that line item. Here's a breakdown per school, $307,566 over the next 5 years. And this is for our switches and routers. All said and done, that's a project that's well overdue. We're pushing 10 years on some of these pieces of equipment. They have a lifespan of 5 to 7 years. So it's really handy that we buy them all now, and 5 to 7 years, we're back up again for E-rate, we can get something else. So we're expending most of the budgets. You'll see that the Eugene Field Elementary School budget diminishes to $406, as well as the middle school budget. The Eugene Field, just because of lower enrollment numbers, and the Ottawa Middle School budget because everything is housed at the middle school. Also, the wireless controller is at the middle school, and the wireless access points that we requested are only for the middle school. USAC pays a percentage of the projects, so USD 290, they will pay 80% for us, we pay the remaining 20%. So that equates to $246,000 on them, if and only if we pay the $61,513. When we started this project, we designed it so there was no obligation to move forward. We put the power in the board's hands, everything's done, we can move forward or not. And it's interesting the way they do it. We can actually move forward with half the projects, one of the projects, two of the projects, whatever. The numbers are all locked in for a little over a year, I believe, and we can pull from it as needed. We started this project, I think I talked to you guys about it probably a year ago when we started talking about switches and switch replacements, and this E-rate process has been very long and very drawn out. After this is completed, our entire network, 100% from top to bottom, will be brand new. The main thing we're hitting right now is our wireless controller has licensing built into it for 128 access points that it can talk to. Those devices that you're using right now, right above you guys, you can see one of them. We have 128 installed, and that wireless controller cannot support anymore. For an additional $2,000 over the price of the original controller, we would have had 1,024 limit. So we're going to bump that up, have that 1,024 limit, which we will never, ever, ever get close to with one access point per classroom. But this will fill in the gaps that we have at the middle school as we prepare to go one-to-one. And we'll also make our safety and security upgrades easier on the network, pushing that high-definition video everywhere with higher speeds. And as a bonus, we have about 52 of these switches. Each one sells for about $100 to $300 still. They still have some residual value. So we could offset our initial $61,000 investment from anywhere to $5,000 to $15,000.
Are they made of copper or something?
There's some copper in there, a little bit.
Those meth heads like that.
Questions, concerns?
So I'm going to assume, because I know you guys are very good at what you do, that this is also taking into consideration all the upgrades at the high school through the construction and the large new school that we're building.
Yep. We had a lot to do to make sure this was all going to work, mainly that we can use these Eugene Field dollars and then still have a new school that's called something else on that budget. We have to track every single piece of equipment for the next 10 years. That's the burden of E-rate. So we'll have binders and binders and binders of everything from our purchase orders to our package, what is it called? Packing slips. That's it. We have to track all of that, where it is. And after 3 years, it can move buildings. So if we did have a need where an enrollment number changed, we wanted to have more kids in this school, we could take that switch after 3 years, put it in a different elementary school, and keep going.
You said Ottawa Learning Center was covered this building.
Yep.
But when Ottawa Learning Center moves out into the refurbished Eugene Field, how does that affect this building?
If we're outside of 3 years, we're good. If we're not, we reimburse. So we'll see. Because there's equipment here. So we have 2 switches here and 1 outside. So that 1 outside switch would be covered. The 2 inside we'd have to reimburse, prorated, I'm sure. I haven't actually asked that question, but I'll make sure that we can get that covered before it comes up. Good question.
How much is one switch if you did have to reimburse?
About $5,000 with the optics that send the signal through. The optics are the variable part. It depends on how far it is from home base. Optics cost a different dollar amount when they get further away. The big chunk of that number, if you're doing the math in your head and seeing 50 switches times $5,000, it doesn't add up. The router at the middle school is a very expensive piece of equipment. It is the main router for everything we do. Every piece of information that travels through the district goes through that main router, and it's a 100-pound device, and it's giant, and I'll have to remove it from the rack, and it'll be great and wonderful. And we can sell that for money that's more than 100 to 300. They're about 2,000 to 5,000 probably still. So.
And we're not taking action on this
This is
tonight.
information.
This is information, and then we'll be asking in the next few meetings for approval for different things, and we'll put them on consent agenda. We just wanted to get this information out to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Oh, you get to do district report card.
Enjoy the game.
All right. For the last couple of years, you know that we've had some issues with what the state has called interim assessments. And finally, this past year, we had what was real assessments, career and college ready assessments. And so for the first time in about 3 years, we have building report card and district report card. This evening, I'm going to review the district report card for you. And then when principals do their reports in the spring, they will share with you their building information. But first, I want to show you how to get to this page. What I did on Board Docs was upload just the graphs and so on that you can get from the KSDE website. And we're not going to review those today. We're going to actually go to the website and look at the information. So, I can't believe you don't read my mind after all these years. So this is what it looks like. You can, from this page, you can see that you can select a building. And from the pages that we're going to go through, you can select a building as well. So we're going to look at the district overall. As you scroll down the page, you can see we have college and career ready. We have graduation rate. We're going to look at that in a little bit. The district IDEA performance plan and performance in fiscal systems, teacher licensure, demographic information, dropout rate. We'll look at that in a couple of minutes. Attendance rate, we'll look at that as well. And then performance level, that's what we're going to spend a great deal of our time on this evening. And annual measurable objectives, ACT scores. That's a history of our ACT scores, which Dr. Cobbs visited with you about, I believe it was November. And then the National Assessment for Educational Progress. You've heard of that as NAEP in the past, and only a tiny portion of our students take that. But you're welcome to visit this website and look at all of those things. Feel free to email or call if you have questions. Tonight we're going to start with performance level. Okay, and you can see on that right-hand side we're looking at math and we're looking at all grades. Okay, and all student groups. So we have students, we're compared to the state, and we have students that are in level 1. Level 1 is not on grade level. It can be significantly below to just slightly below grade level. In the yellow, that's considered level 2, and that is on grade level, but not college and career ready. That means that in the old days, you heard the word proficient. which is probably, you could say, 70 to 80% of the information the students have mastered. But now we're asking for a much deeper level of mastery of understanding. So level 3 is on grade level, mastery level. So that would be about 90% or so. And then the blue is really, it is the advanced group, okay? So you can see that we're pretty close to state averages. Certainly we want to have a smaller orange stripe and a much larger blue stripe. This was the first time taking this test. As I said earlier, we had gone through 3 years of trying out tests and had numerous problems. We had fewer problems this year, technology-wise, not because of us, but because of the state and so on. And then when we got the information, a lot of it was incomplete. We had students that didn't have records and so on. So we believe now that this is probably as accurate as the state can give us. And so you can see we are in math right at about state average. So if you want to go back up and go to ELA, ELA is English Language Arts. And again, all that information along that right-hand side. And then we'll look at these graphs. And again, we're pretty close to the state averages. Certainly the same is true. We want to make the orange smaller and certainly increase the blue. We like to get certainly all of our kids to be in the green and blue. So that's always our task. We always remember that our kids are more than a test score, and that we give numerous assessments, and they're all important. And it's only when we put all the assessments together that we really get a good picture of our kids' achievement. So this one test, while we did just fine on this one test, is not all that meaningful unless you put all the information together per student. So if you scroll down a little bit more, you can see, excuse me, there are actually numbers. And you see the download button, sorry. You see the download button, which is where I got the information that I uploaded for you. There's also an explanation below for each of those levels and so on. So we'll go to science, please. Science will be changing this year. Not all of our kids take science. It's 4th grade, 7th grade, and 11th grade who take the science assessment. There are 5 levels, much like the old ones: meets the standard, proficient, exceeds the standard, those kinds of things. That will all change this year. So again, we just look at it in comparison to how we know our kids do on other assessments. So if you scroll down a little bit more, same information as you had with reading and English language arts. So let's go back to the original front page. And let's look at dropout rate. And scroll. So you can see the graph. What this doesn't show that you're all very much aware of is in the last 4 or 5 years, graduation rate has increased significantly at Ottawa High School. You'll remember back in September, that was one of the things that accommodations that Advanced Ed talked about. So we are doing well. Certainly we want that graduation rate to be as close to 100% as we can possibly get. So if you want to scroll down, you can actually see numbers. Okay, so then we'll go back and we'll go to attendance. Our attendance rate is a little bit better than the state average. What this doesn't tell you is that most of our kids attend school most of the time, 95, 96% of the time. We do have kids, unfortunately, that we struggle with their attendance. They're gone 15, 20 days a semester, sometimes more. So those are the kinds of things that we'll continue to work on as we move forward. Questions that you have about any of this information with regards to the district report card?
Well, I was looking at the information and was looking at the overall score, and the level 4 for the overall score, the state is 8.5% of the students are reaching that. For USD 290, it's 3.35%. So only we're 39% as good as the state. But then on the bottom end, it increases. You know, the ones at level 1 that are not proficient, we're higher than the state. Why do you see us not doing as good as the state?
So I think there are a number of things. And as I said, this is one test. And just like when you go to the doctor, you don't just get one test and that's the be-all, end-all. If there's something that you want to find out, you have to have a number of measures. So we want to keep that in mind. And we want to keep in mind that for many of our kids, this was the first real stab at this kind of test. So the reliability of this test, I don't put a lot of stock in it. I think that what it tells us is, on the whole, we did about average, which means the test is probably pretty good, and as time goes on, our students will do better. I think what's more important is we look at things like the MAP assessment, measures of academic progress, and we look at those assessments per kid over time. So when parents get that information, it's much more important to look back at the MAP assessment and see how their student did in second grade and third grade and fourth grade and fifth grade, and not put a lot of stock in this just yet. I think this will change with the new ESEA law. There's already talk about doing something similar to what we do in science in terms of testing third grade, fifth grade, and eighth grade, and those kinds of things. So I think that it's important not to overanalyze it, but instead just look at it as another piece of data and compare it to the MAP and to teacher-made tests and so on. Our teachers know how our kids are really doing. We don't have to wait. I mean, this was given last March and April. We get this information on December 8th. So some of our kids have moved. Many of our kids have learned much more. So this kind of information is just a tiny snapshot. So I think it's important to look at that and go, sure, we want to have more in the blue and fewer in that orange on that end. Certainly we do. Who doesn't? But how accurate this information is, we have other ways to find that information.
How many years of giving this particular test do you think it would be before you would get a more stable, kids know what to expect, teachers know what's going on, that kind of stuff? How long does that usually take to?
I think every year it increases a little bit. What I don't ever want to happen is that we shut down everything like we did in the old days and say, okay, now it's January, we're going to start teaching the standards that are on the test. I have told staff over and over, if a standard comes up in our curriculum in April and the test is in March, the kids will learn it in April. We're not going to hang our hat on, we've got to cram everything in, and that isn't really how kids learn, right?
No, not at all. So do you guys use this information more as kind of like a guide? Like you can look at it and say, from this year to this year, the numbers have improved, therefore there's growth, because the numbers themselves, in my opinion, aren't as important as whether or not they're improving year after year after year.
And I agree with that 100%. And I think for the state assessments, I think we just look at it overall. But I think that when we look at our MAP assessments, we say, okay, here's the growth. And if we don't see a lot of growth in a particular student, then I think we start doing interventions. We want to have a year's growth in a year's time or more. Sometimes we do. Sometimes it's a little less. Sometimes there are big jumps. But that's what we pay close attention to, more so than a one-and-done kind of test like this.
And is there anything on the line for us as a district if those do they have to meet a certain amount in a certain level, or?
Not anymore. No, not. Thank you for asking that. With the new Elementary and Secondary Education Act, no, there's no punitive measures anymore. There's no AYP. It's simply information to look at. So, thank you. Any other questions that you might have?
How will we as a district be using this type of information at the beginning of the year, where you get all your data and you start disaggregating things to, plan for an efficient school year? How will we be using this information?
The trouble with the state assessments is that we didn't even get to look at any of the data until the end of October and through November. And that's when principals and Kim and I started to see that there were entire groups of kids that didn't even have an assessment or had zeros or whatever. So this particular assessment isn't all that valuable in terms of when you get your roster of kids looking to see, how did they do, which is another reason why the MAP assessment and teacher-made tests are far more usable information than the state assessment. I think for this district report card, the things that are important, that are meaningful this particular year is our dropout rate, graduation rate, however you want to look at that. Attendance rate, I think, is important, but still we have to break it down by building and look at those kids who have significant absences. I think those are the most important things. Our ACT scores tell us much more because that's the same assessment over a long period of time. So I think it's important that you see this and that you understand it and that you know how to get to this web page, and certainly put stock in the graduation rate and those kinds of things. We need to hang on a while before we put too much stock in the data.
The problem with it is that people see a snapshot of our district. So if you're thinking about moving here and you were comparing us to Wichita School District, that's the only numbers they can see. So they don't always get the qualifiers unless they understand.
That's true,
the
but
fallacies
right.
in
So just to be clear, we didn't do poorly on this test. I just want to make that very clear.
Did well.
That being at the state average is not. I mean, there are I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of students who go to school in Kansas. So being average up against the state of Kansas is not a bad deal. I don't want anybody to think that we did poorly. We certainly did not do poorly on this assessment.
And our district, when Nathan was in elementary school, one of the things that had come about was the No Child Left Behind, and they were starting to really push, what do we do? And they started to recognize that they have some deficiencies in terms of the gifted type push here. But what that score doesn't reflect is the individual effort that the teachers made, because for
right.
Nathan, and there was a group of them, all of their teachers all the way through had pushed them to do more than what they could. They wrote curriculum in the summer. Brad Carlson did one year. So what it doesn't reflect is those individual efforts. But for us as a board, I think we should programmatically look at it and say, are
right.
we doing enough to beef up gifted? Or, and ask those type of questions. It makes us ask that from more of a global perspective instead of, the individual stuff, because they've got other tools to measure that, and they kind of tailor things to meet those kids' needs.
That's a great point. That's exactly right. We have teachers who go way beyond what you would ask if they were in any other profession, and teach subject matter and topics to students that's very difficult. So I don't ever want to disrespect that or dishonor that. And again, we didn't do poorly. So I'm getting the tone that we did crummy, and we didn't do crummy at all.
How much time do we spend on preparing for and taking this specific assessment?
So when you say that there are two answers. One is that everything we do prepares kids, yes. Right? And the second part of that is we don't teach to the test in the old-fashioned, okay, it's January, stop everything, now we're going to start getting ready for the test. We're not doing that. We're just not doing that. It doesn't help anybody.
No.
So we're not doing that.
I just wondered how, if it, is there any disadvantage, since it's, in my opinion, not the best assessment anyways, as far as what we're trying to
Right.
actually assess. I just wondered how much of our teaching time is going towards sticking these kids in front of something to take these tests.
Well,
and-
it does take time to take the assessment, certainly, and we're required to do that.
Yeah.
So we go, okay, fine, we'll do, the 8 hours it takes to do the test. But we don't do a bunch of practice tests and all that because it's not worthwhile.
That's good. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
As long as we're not spending any more time than we have to on it.
That's a good way to put it, right.
Okay.
Anything else?
Anything else?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we are ready for board reports. Does anyone have anything they would like to share with us? Sharing time.
Garfield met last week, Garfield Site Council. We talked about attendance. We talked about student discipline in that building. Got good reports in both of those areas. In talking about curriculum alignment throughout the district, Garfield has been tasked with developing some guidelines for science in elementaries, and we saw some preliminary work on that, which is pretty exciting. So we had a good meeting. No snacks.
No. We need to change.
Yeah.
Now, when they were talking about guidelines, more scope and sequence is what you're saying, or? Okay.
I got to go on a ride along with Dr. Stroh on Friday, and that was a lot of fun. I saw some of the buildings I haven't been in ever, or at least for a while, and saw the teachers and some of my old teachers, so it was really enjoyable, and I learned a lot more than I realized I still had to learn, so so it was good.
I did the same thing on the day before Christmas, on the 18th, and we went to all the facilities, and it was really fun. I had a really good time and saw lots of former students and lots of friends that are still teaching in those buildings, and it was a good day.
I'd be happy to do that for others if it takes more than 2 hours, is what Brittany and I learned. Linda and I took about 5.
It took all day.
So we might need to do 2 or 3, but
But I think Brittany had a really good point when she said just by going into the buildings, you just learn a lot.
you learn how hard our teachers work and how hard our principals work.
And how cute all the kids are.
They are.
Well, and I can tell you, teachers actually appreciate the fact that board members are in the buildings.
They do.
I hear that from
Someone
my
you know.
significant other quite often, that they wish they'd see more board members, because then they can get a better picture of what's actually going on in the buildings.
But I will say, as a board member, I feel comfortable going into the elementary buildings because I can make the excuse that I'm seeing friends. But middle school and high school is different. I kind of feel like if there were an invitation or something, then I would have an excuse and they wouldn't be going, what's she doing here? Kind of thing. So I would appreciate any invitations. That's what I'm saying.
I don't know, I think we should just all sneak up on Dr. Cobb's.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a board policy reading.
Oh, man.
We're so excited.
This is the best part of the day.
I know it is.
We've saved the best.
And I'm so glad there's one mid-year. We don't have to wait till, May?
Right. Actually, KSB every year in December and June sends policy updates. There were quite a few in the December packet. Dr. Stroh and I discussed it, and I talked with the policy analyst at KSB, and she felt like this was the only one that really required mid-year action. It's a very simple change to GAAA, simply an update of what's in red there, showing addresses, contact information for both the EEOC and the Kansas Human Rights Commission should there be a discrimination complaint. And so they just felt like it was important for that to be updated as soon as possible. So that's the essence of the change.
Okay, and we'll vote on it next time.
Right.
then. Okay.
Did
Any
you
questions?
check the number? Did you check the number by calling it?
tell.
I
Called the
didn't.
one at the hospital hotline, and it was a adult film site. Someone put the wrong 800 number. I mean, I just thought on a whim I would just call these numbers, and so anyway,
Sure.
just saying, I didn't know if you called it or not before we.
I assume that they gave me correct information, but I'll call them in the next 2 weeks and make sure.
I know, it's just a question.
Thank you.
I know. Sorry, I've been bitten before. Sorry.
Brian's down there asking for the number too. That's what's sad.
It was awful.
Okay, our next order of business, we have no executive session for negotiations, but we do have one for personnel for the purpose of Dr. Stroh's evaluation, so, and we will need about 30 minutes for this.
Madam Chairman, I move that the board go into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters for non-elected personnel, that the board return to the open meeting at 8:30 in this room. The executive session is required to protect the privacy interests of an identifiable individual, and just for board
Second.
members.
Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand. Oppose, okay, and we need returning. Susan
motioned, I seconded.
Okay,
And I voted yes.
okay, all in favor, raise your right hand. We're gonna assume Harold's voting yes. Okay, we need a motion to go back into executive session.
Madam Chairman, I move the board go into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters for non-elected personnel. At the board return to open meeting at, how long do you want?
30 more minutes.
At 9 o'clock in this room. I don't know why anybody would stay for the rest of this meeting. The executive session is required to protect the privacy interests of an identifiable individual.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign, 7-0. We'll be back at 9.
She's got some water.
Madam Chairman, I move that we return to open session.
Second. Second.
Been moved and seconded.
You okay? You want me to call it?
Please.
All right. All in favor of coming back into open session, raise your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries 7-0. What's
Item number 10.
okay? Personnel report. You have a personnel report in front of you. I will entertain a motion to approve.
I move we approve the personnel report.
Second.
Moved by Tim, seconded by Bill. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Stroh, announcements.
Chamber dinner is on Saturday at OU. I sent to everybody that information. 5:30 to 6:30 is the social hour, and dinner and awards will follow that. Our bids close at 2 o'clock on Tuesday the 19th. At 2 o'clock, the meeting is at Lloyd Builder. Linda's planning to be there. I need at least one other board member who can be there.
I can be there.
Brian, okay.
That'd be good. I cannot make it.
All right, so it'll be Brian and Linda. Okay.
Just shoot me a text to remind me.
I will. Okay. And then legislative session open today. Say your prayers.
Amen to that.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. Do no harm.
On January 25th, our next board meeting, we'll have pictures at 6:45. And then
I thought you already did that.
we did a certain someone. We just couldn't
Yeah.
Photoshop you in.
We tried.
Did you really try?
I want to see this on the bloopers reel.
Golfing shorts. So
I would have loved to have seen your attempts to Photoshop that in.
Yeah,
Oh,
those
don't
will need to
tempt
come
me,
out.
Will. And then that's
Send it to all of us so we can see it.
It's our next Christmas card.
Yes.
there you go.
Facebook post.
January 25th, we'll have board appreciation, and our OEA team will be here to give certificates. That's all I have.
All right. Hearing no other business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Bill, seconded by Tim. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Did he deny?
You okay?
Oh, it's his
Motion carries 7-0.
bronchitis.
Thank you much.